What My Bones Know by Stephanie Fu, published in 2022. From her author bio, in 2018, I was diagnosed with complex PTSD. At the time, I looked good on paper. A successful journalist and a happy relationship, but I had been having panic attacks every morning in my office for months. After I got diagnosed, I found it impossible to maintain the veneer of perfection I was trying so desperately to uphold, and instead dedicated my life to healing from CPTSD. But because it's an under-researched, underdiagnosed condition, it's hard to find material on it, and many of the books I did read made me feel pathologized, stigmatized, and alone. I told myself that when I finally healed, I would write the book I so wanted to read when I was first diagnosed, a stigma-busting, kind, first-person account with real science and solutions. I used to work as a radio producer for This American Life and Snap Judgment, and I freelanced for podcasts like The Cut, Nancy, Reply All, and 99% Invisible. In the prologue, Stephanie Fu introduces herself as a millennial journalist and a first-generation ethnically Chinese Malaysian immigrant. She describes a photo of herself as a child blowing bubbles and describes how she doesn't connect that image of herself to herself despite knowing who it is in the picture. In this way, she describes the concept of disassociation and warns of the intensity that will come in the account of her abuse in part 1, telling readers to skip if they might find it triggering. In the first chapter, the author dives right into her childhood abuse. Her descriptions are intense and hard to listen to. She received extreme physical and emotional abuse from her mother, along with neglect and more occasional physical abuse from her father. She describes a relationship with her parents where she served as a mediator between them and shouldered the adult emotional responsibilities while never receiving the love or nurturing she should have. As a teenager, her mother eventually abandons her and her father, who then proceed to move into an apartment and discard everything that reminds them of the mother. During high school, Stephanie's father meets a new woman and starts to disappear for long periods. Eventually, he completely abandons her, leaving her to fend for herself, despite still being underage. Despite it all, she manages to graduate high school and put herself through college and ends up running a radio show at 23. However, despite her outer successes, she suffers from rage and anxiety that damages her relationship with her friends and bosses alike. She turns to therapy to seek help. Her diagnosis leads her to explore her options for treatment outside of talk therapy, which has less of an effect for sufferers of CPTSD. She tries a modality called EMDR, eye movement desensitization reprocessing. EMDR therapy was initially developed in 1987 for the treatment of post-traumatic stress disorder. The adaptive information processing model considers symptoms of PTSD and other disorders, unless physically or chemically based, to result from past disturbing experiences that continue to cause stress because the memory was not adequately processed. These unprocessed memories are understood to contain the emotions, thoughts, beliefs, physical sensations that occurred at the time of the traumatizing event. When the memories are triggered, these stored disturbing elements are experienced and cause the symptoms of PTSD and/or other disorders. Unlike other treatments that focus directly on altering the emotions, thoughts, and responses resulting from traumatic experiences, EMDR therapy focuses directly on the memory and is intended to change the way memory is stored in the brain, thus reducing and eliminating the problematic symptoms. EMDR helped Stephanie make a breakthrough, and from there she adds in meditation, yin yoga, and grounding practices that help her to bolster the mind-body connection. In the middle of the section of the book, she details her dive into her past, visiting family members, old friends, and interviewing specialists. Stephanie describes meeting an old acquaintance on a visit home and asks them if they know of any other children in their community who were being hit, to which he replies, "We all were." Stephanie asks, "Why is the Chinese community experiencing this issue? Is it religion, philosophy?" Taoism encourages them to go with the flow, not to push back. Westerners are thought to be selfish and entitled when they talk about their pain, which makes Stephanie think of her Malaysian family who scolded her for being too American when she wanted to discuss what happened to her. She says that people in Chinese culture don't talk about negative things because they believe that discussing them can cause them to happen. So experiences of abuse are not discussed, as speaking things out makes them come true. She speaks to Hyun Dok-do, professor of sociology and interdisciplinary social sciences at San Jose State University. He also told her that she was looking in the wrong way, but he didn't frame it as entitlement. He said that they had disassociated to survive. This is a universal problem, not a cultural issue. Everyone in every culture ignores problems with their own ways and social mores. She does more historical and genealogical research based on things her aunt had told her, especially an incident during World War II. Malaysia was colonized by the Japanese, and then the British took it over in what they called the Malayan Emergency. Many of her ancestors were dispossessed or killed. Fu links these historical experiences of her family to stress responses she feels and her parents inherited, making them more susceptible to mental illness. She returns her narrative back to 2017 in her storytelling, briefly before her diagnosis. Her father is also having a difficult time with her new family and calls her. He has started to realize his own trauma. He wants to repair the relationship. She helps him learn skills that she learned in therapy to help him get along with his family. But once that's achieved, he stops contacting her and she's abandoning again, causing a relapse. Soon after, she started experiencing pelvic pain and was diagnosed with endometriosis by an unsympathetic gynecologist. She goes into studies about how trauma can cause the sympathetic nervous system to go into overdrive and create chronic inflammation, which in turn can cause cancer, reproductive diseases, etc. The stress system is closely bound up with the hormonal system, which makes reproductive issues in women especially likely. Here, Fu covers issues that women face, like being dismissed by doctors. Her gynecologist almost gave her an unneeded hysterectomy because she was allergic to SRRIs and birth control. The pain from the condition led her to no longer be able to use somatic methods, and she recommitted to a new type of therapy. Dissatisfied by the way both her gynecologist and former therapist were treating her, she reached out to a new therapist who was able to help her, Dr. Jacob Hamm, a modern psychoanalytic relational psychologist she finds towards the end of the book. Relational psychoanalysis serves as a framework or sense of sensibilities that can reorient psychoanalytic ideas around the centrality of relationships in the human psyche. Han helps Fu to integrate her CPTSD diagnosis and improve the way she relates to herself. This includes providing ways to love the difficult parts of ourselves we'd rather banish, or as Dr. Han conceptualizes it, befriending the Hulk. I found this book to be incredibly engaging, with its mixture of memoir and mental health education. It introduced me to a lot of concepts I'd never heard before, and the personal way it's told made it easy to understand. My only criticism is that it could have used a little more editing. Some points and stories are repeated a few times, and there's a lot of timeline jumping in the storytelling. However, it does not at all diminish the value of the message. Ultimately, Fu discovers that healing is not a destination, but more of a way of life, a way of relating to oneself more gently while gradually dismantling the deep-rooted illusion of shame born of past experiences she couldn't control. This book is for anyone who desires to heal. It provides a beautiful and often humorous inside look at someone else's brave and comprehensive healing journey, reminding us that we're not alone in our struggle, nor in our ongoing efforts to heal.